Hello there and welcome to the monthly update on the opinion polls conducted by the Levada Center in Russia. And this month I will throw in some tidbits of interesting news. Let's start with the results of the opinion polls. The results for Mr. Putin approval ratings have not changed. They still hover at around 80%. The approval ratings results for the government are holding at just below 70%. And overall, the respondents feel that the current government is steering the country in the right direction. But, and it may be a fluke, if we look carefully at this index, the latest numbers seems to point to the beginning of a downturn in people's sentiment or confidence in their government, especially if we consider that at the time this data was being collected, Russians were voting in the regional elections, which took place on the 10th of September in most regions. Interestingly, attitudes towards other countries, such as the United States, the European Union, and Ukraine, seem to have recovered a little. Although they are still far more negative than they were before the invasion of Ukraine, the latest numbers are the most positive they've been since the beginning of the invasion. In my opinion, the ongoing war in Ukraine may be beginning to affect public sentiment at large. And I say this also because the Defense Minister, Mr. Shoigu, made a point of saying in a televised conference on the 3rd of October that the military had enough new recruits and there was no need for another mobilization of the type and scale that was announced in September 2022. Moreover, he reassured the public that people called up for the compulsory military service or the draft will not be sent to the front. I might be reading a bit too much into this, but next year is presidential elections year in Russia. And although the approval ratings are high, there are expanding pockets of discontent with the way the country has been run in recent years. Another bit of news or rumour that I find quite intriguing that has surfaced in the last few days is that the son of the late Mr. Prigozhin, yes, the Mr. Prigozhin, head of the Wagner Group, who met an untimely end on an exploding jet, his son, Pavel Prigozhin, is in the process of taking back control of the Wagner Group, apparently. Currently, the head of the group is Andrei Troshev, who was chosen for the role by President Putin. The ISW was the first to pick up on this on Prigozhin's 2023 Telegram channel, and I put a link in the description below to their website. It will be interesting to see how the situation around the Wagner Group evolves, and if there is a threat to the status quo in the Kremlin brewing in the background. It's worth noting that Pavel Prigozhin is 25 years old. Most of the people he finds himself pitted against are in their 60s or older. It's reasonable to expect that there will be intergenerational tension as well as a new perspective being brought to the table. And now for something completely different. I have been toying with the idea of writing a spy novel along the lines of two old-timers find themselves forced back into action after an old foe suddenly comes to a grisly end. The action plays out in Bulgaria because this is the country where old Europe, East and West come to play and sometimes clash with each other. The temporary title is The Gordian Knot, and I will read to you the first chapter in a video at the beginning of next week. But for now, just a little teaser. The Gordian Knot. George put the phone back inside the drawer. He looked at Poppy's back. Vasily Kozov is dead, he said. No worries, I have interflora on speed dial. Just tell me when and where, she answered, without looking away from her monitors or her phone. I said Vasily Kozov, George repeated. Sorry to hear that. White flowers, she offered. George snapped. You are on that damned app again. Poppy sat up and slowly swiveled her chair around to face him. I said, old 92B is dead, George repeated sharply. Oh. Poppy looked down. Natural causes? She added with a hint of hope in her voice. Bullet in the back. George replied. Well, that counts as natural causes for someone like him. Wife? Or one of the girlfriends? Poppy asked. At the moment, I don't know, but not very likely. We will have to look into it, George added. No problem. I'll start with the obvious. Facebook, Telegram. George shook his head. This time we will have to go. Do we really? Poppy said, her voice ending the sentence with more than a hint of dismay. I'm afraid so, and we are on a tight deadline. The disposal team is ready to go, George said. The forecast is for rain here, whereas it's going to be sunny down there, George added sweetly. Bah, replied Poppy. It'll be nice to have shkembe chorba again, mused George. I'd rather eat my foot, Poppy replied. And now, if you want to know what shkembe is, you will have to watch the next video. Alright, or you can just Google it. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.